Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm Sherry Seligson, and I'm here for another fun science activity and experiment, as well as some fun learning that we can continue to do. We're going to make a fun craft. As I'm talking, I'm going to get this set up. This one's a little bit more involved than just the setup, but it's because I really want you to see what I'm talking about. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about dolphins, but we're going to deal with their whole group of organisms, the whales. Interestingly, dolphins and porpoises are part of the whale group. They're considered whales. And so we're going to talk about the different kinds of whales that are out there. I'm waiting for some more of you guys to jump on and join me. Let us know where you're coming from. We'd like to see how you're doing and how you guys are faring with this stay-at-home situation that we're in. If you're running out of supplies, what kind of supplies are you running out of? What do you need? How can we help support you guys in what you're doing? So let us know. I'm happy to have you guys give us some feedback on some suggestions as well. But you may wonder what I'm making here. I'll talk about it in just a second. But we are going to be talking about whales. And so in our continuing study and discussion of marine mammals and marine organisms. Well, whales are a group of organisms that are mammals. They are air breathers. They have blowholes on the tops of their heads so that they can breathe the air. They also can echolocate like we did yesterday. We did the fun echolocation activity. And there's actually two types of whales. There are toothed whales and there are baleen whales. And we're going to talk about both of those and why they're separate from one another. There's a major physical difference between toothed whales and baleen whales. Now, dolphins and porpoises are a part of the toothed whale family. They have teeth. Baleen whales don't have teeth. They have something called baleen, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually making kind of a mock dolphin mouth, so you can see how their teeth are shaped and what they look like. You don't have to make this at home, but you can if you want. All I did was cut a bunch of circles out, and then I cut a slit to the center to make a cone, because dolphin teeth and other toothed whales, their teeth are shaped like cones. Now, before we talk more about that, let me just tell you the difference between dolphins and porpoises. There is a difference. We use those terms interchangeably sometimes, but dolphins actually have a more pointed beak, if you will. It looks it comes to a point, whereas porpoises have a more rounded head that doesn't have an extension of what you might consider their nose. It's called a beak. Additionally, the dorsal fin, that fin on their back, a dolphin's dorsal fin is curved. It kind of comes back in a curved shape, whereas a porpoise has more of a triangular shaped dorsal fin. That's how you can kind of tell them apart. Dolphins as a whole tend to be larger than porpoises. Porpoises are a little smaller. And of course, in the whale family, there's lots and lots of different sizes of whales. So let's talk about the toothed whales. Dolphins and porpoises are toothed whales. Orcas are also toothed whales, and they have cone-shaped teeth. When we think about what they feed on, they actually hunt in groups. They communicate as they're corralling the food together. They go for a school of fish, and they'll all corral them together and take turns one at a time, kind of going into the school to grab a fish and keep that noise, that echolocation, the craziness going so that they can grab their food. And so when they grab a fish, what they do is they use their cone-shaped teeth to hold them. They don't really tear into them with these cones. So here's my dolphin mouth. Look at that. Those are the cone-shaped teeth. I wanted you to see that difference. So they can't really tear like, you know how some carnivores have these tearing teeth. We have little canine teeth that are kind of like that. But if you think of maybe a lion's mouth, lion's teeth are very pointy, and that's used to help grab and tear. Well, these guys don't tear. They're using their cone-shaped teeth to hang on to their food, to the fish, and then they kind of manipulate the fish around with their teeth and their tongue until the fish is pointed head first down its throat, and then they swallow the fish whole. So they use these teeth for grasping, to grab on, not to tear into. They're not tearing teeth, they're grabbing teeth. It actually kind of looks like an alligator, but it's not. Okay, so these are our toothed whale mouths, and they use those to grab on. In fact, they don't ever lose their teeth. We talked a little bit about sharks before, how sharks can lose their teeth, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But dolphins keep their teeth as adults, and so these teeth will grow in size as they get older. In fact, to tell the age of a dolphin or any other toothed whale, all you need to do is take a tooth and cut it this way, and by doing that, it actually grows in growth rings and in the same way that a tree does. And so when you look at the number of rings in a dolphin's tooth, that gives you a clue to the age of that animal. Now, of course, we don't want to pull dolphin teeth if they're healthy and live to see how old they are. So most of the time when people are studying dolphins in the wild, they give estimations based on their size, behavior, and things. And so we don't do that to figure out how old they are, unless perhaps maybe a dolphin has washed up on shore and died. To determine how old it was when it died, we can use the tooth rings to identify its age. So the same way that a tree has growth rings, dolphin teeth and other toothed whale teeth have growth rings as well. So if you wanted to do this, all I did was I took two sides of an egg tray and some paper and tape and some scissors, and I cut circles like I showed you, cut a slit, made some cones, and taped them on. So you can play, you can have fun, you can kind of get an idea of what dolphin toothed whale teeth look like. Okay, so those are our toothed whales. Now let's talk about baleen whales. Interestingly, a difference between toothed whales and baleen is that toothed whales have teeth, whereas baleen whales have something called baleen. Another difference is toothed whales have a single blowhole. Baleen whales have two blowholes, two nostrils. And I have a picture of this is a humpback whale. And I'm going to hold it up close. You can see the two nostrils there and there. And so when it comes up out of the water, you can see those two nostrils. And that's one way instantly to tell if you've got a toothed whale or a baleen whale. Baleen whale have two nostrils, whereas toothed whales have one. Another major difference is the fact that baleen whales don't have teeth, they have baleen. So here's a picture of a baleen whale's mouth. This is the humpback whale also, and you can see that white stuff sticking down, kind of fringy looking. It's actually very stiff, and it's flexible, but it's stiff, it's horny. It's called baleen, and whales will use that to filter out organisms from the water. Baleen whales tend to feed on plankton, and so they grab a whole mouthful of food, and then they strain the water through the baleen, and the little planktonic organisms like krill and small shrimp and things like that will stay within the baleen, and then they swallow them. So they use baleen. So we're going to actually make some baleen and try it out and see if we can filter out organisms from the water. And so again, we're trying to use stuff that you have at home, that you can do this at home on your own if you want. And so what I have here is I have just a milk jug, and I washed it out, of course, and then I cut a hole through the bottom to make a mouth. You can kind of see that mouth opening. Went ahead and did that on my own. It was a little tough at the bottom because this particular milk jug has some stiff plastic, and so I ended up using this doodad we have. You can use maybe the starcher cut. Moms and dads help kids out with this. This has just a little X-Acto knife end that I use to start it, and then these are heavy-duty scissors. You might be able to do it with regular scissors. If you don't have a milk carton, you can use a 2-liter bottle, plastic bottle. You can even make a small version with a water bottle. Something small, plastic container-wise, is something that you can do this with. And so I cut an opening, and then once I did that, I of course decorated it with some eyes. This is my filter feeding baleen whale, so he has two nostrils on top, and then I gave him a couple of side fins right there, and then I'm going to give him a tail. So let me do that now. So to make the tail, and I'm also going to give him a spout. We'll talk about spouts in a minute. So to make the tail, all you do is take a sheet of, I did cardstock, and I folded it in half so that it would be a little stiffer, and I'm going to cut kind of a tail shape out, and as part of that tail shape, I'll show you that the fold is on top. You can do whatever you'd like to do to make this, but I'm going to cut kind of a rounded tail shape, narrow it down for the base of the tail called the peduncle, and then just make a flap. Let me show you what that looks like. It's going to kind of look like a vase at first. You can see like a stemmed vase, kind of like that. This is going to be this tab here is just so it can kind of fit into the opening. And so I've got the tail here. I'm going to give it a little tiny point in the center because there's usually an indentation in the top of the tail for our toothed whales. You can see that. There you go. You can see that right there. You can get as fancy with this as you want. But anyway, now I have my little tail, and I'm going to stick the tab part in, kind of fold it in, and stick the tab part and there. Now, if you remember from yesterday, the orientation of a marine mammal's tail is dorsoventral. It goes this way. It does not go like this, like a fish. Fish move in this direction. Whales move in this direction. Dolphins and whales move in this direction, okay? So make sure you're orienting your whale tail properly, all right? And then we'll go ahead and give them a spout of water with the rest of this. So I just have this. I'm going to actually make kind of a, I don't know what you would call this, just a ball on top of a point, like this. This is definitely not artistic, but you can make this as artistic as you'd like. I just made a shape like this. I'm going to take a permanent marker and just make some watermarks on it. Now, when you color your milk carton with permanent marker, if you make a mistake, you know the cool thing about this, you can erase it with nail polish remover. Nail polish remover will wipe this off. Now this is dry. I can put my hand across it with permanent marker, it's fine. But if I made a mistake and maybe put the eye in the wrong place, just a little bit of nail polish remover takes it right off. So helpful hint there. It also will remove any other markings on your milk carton if you wanted to do that. So let me get this. Oh, we got some noise outside. Let me draw my little water spout here. Now, interestingly, whale blowholes, the whale spout that you see is not a whole squirting amount of water. They don't take water and squirt a whole ton of it out of their blowholes. What it is basically moisture that was in the lungs of the whale. When it exhales, that moisture instantly cools and condenses into like a cloud almost. And so when you see a whale spout, it's not like in the cartoons, it's not squirting a whole ton of water out of its spout. It's exhaling, and with that exhale comes moist air, and that hot moist air from inside the whale condenses and forms this cloudy spray. And so you can take a little slit and cut it right there in between the two nostrils, and then stick this down in like that. All right, so here's my whale with his fun little tail, and let's go ahead and give him some baleen now. All right, I have just a plain old comb. See the comb right there? And so this is going to behave as my baleen. Whale baleen is usually at the top of its mouth coming down. So it comes down like this. And so, but because I think it's going to be easier just for us experimentally, I'm going to put it at the bottom of his mouth. That's not actually correct. I don't know, maybe I can stick it at the, no, I think I'm going to put it at the bottom. I think it will last, it will actually do better if I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can tape it if you want. I'm going to hot glue mine because I think it will stay better for when it's time for us to actually try this, because we are going to filter out some plankton with this. So I've got some hot glue. Again, if you don't have hot glue, you can use tape. Not a problem at all. And I'm hot gluing it just inside his jaw. Let it cool a bit. Don't want to burn my hands. All right. So you see I've got my whale. I've got his baleen. And remember, the baleen usually is from the top down. My baleen is at the bottom because I don't think it would have stuck to the top because it kind of indents in. All right, now we need to have some plankton for this guy to filter. So to simulate my plankton, I have a bowl of water. I'm going to put some spices in there. I'm using oregano because it's bigger leaves. If you have parsley, that would work. Any spice that is somewhat big. You could even crumble up a whole bunch of dead leaves if you wanted from outside and put them in here. You wouldn't even have to use spice. And then let's see if we can get this guy to filter out the plankton. So I'm going to stick him in. Get a whole bunch. Strain it. Oh, we got it all over his nose. Probably needed a bigger bowl for this. There we go. Strain it out. All right. So he's getting more and more built up in his tummy. And so this is something you can just kind of play around with and see how much you can get your whale to strain out with his baleen. a whale's tongue, in fact, let's talk about that. The largest organism in the world is a whale, okay, to ever have lived, including those that are extinct, bigger than any dinosaur we've discovered. The largest whale, or largest organism, is living today, and that's a blue whale. Blue whales are huge. In fact, their tongues, just their tongues, are about the size of an elephant. They weigh the same as an elephant, just their tongue. And what they do is, when they filter feed, when they use their baleen, they take that scoop of water, giant scoop into their mouth, then they use their tongue to push it against the baleen as they're removing the water. As they do that, the plankton will build up just inside their baleen, then they'll close their mouth and swallow. And that's how they get a nice big old mouthful of food. All right, have fun trying this at home. Take some pictures. Let me see if you've done this, if you have any improvements on how this would work. Make sure you get your whale tail oriented right. And if you do it better than me, put your baleen on top. They don't go on the bottom. The baleen hangs down from the top, okay? This is the only anatomically incorrect part right here. And maybe those goofy eyes too. All right, thanks for joining me. We will come back again at 3 o'clock, this time again tomorrow. I've had a lot of fun this week. Hopefully we'll have something fun to do tomorrow as well. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.